Okay, welcome to our weekend Bucky call. This is September 20 or September 21, depending on what continent you're on. We're studying the book A Fuller Explanation by Amy Edmondson, and we're about to begin our study. Our reading tonight is on page 199, Filling Space. And I'm learning tons about the nature of space. Looking forward to tonight. Richard, how are you feeling and what do you anticipate getting out of today's call?
Well, yes, and welcome to Romeo. And he's 3 a.m. I'm 9 a.m. in Western Canada in Calgary. So,
You're
and I
9
think,
p.m.
or 9 p.m., sorry, yeah. um, and we're kind of basking in a really warm and sunny beginnings of fall. And kind of unusual here to be as warm as it is this week or so, but I'm enjoying it. That's good news from that perspective. How I'm feeling, I'm always energized by our sessions, and they always sort of coexist with the um, awareness of what's going around us in the larger world, and the unsettlements that seem to be continuing on a day-to-day basis. So this is almost like a little bit of an oasis to um, discuss some of the things that we've been looking at through Bucky's work and um, and the work of basically his protege Amy. And I had the good fortune of being in a workshop with her on the occasion of Fuller's 100th birthday, 1995. And today, for some reason, I was going through it was either the LinkedIn or the Facebook, and up came a brief presentation of President Reagan awarding Bucky Fuller with the Medal of Freedom, which I believe was in 1983, not so long before he died. So I'm looking forward to our continued dialogues on and and getting further into an understanding of Fuller through Amy. So, Leah, how are you feeling, and what's your expectation for today?
I really feel wonderful.
You got to unmute.
There we go.
That's it. That's it.
Thank you. I'm still learning. I'm new here, Romeo. I am loving this program of meeting on Saturday evening and learning so much. And I pray that you will also learn this and be able to give much more dissertation than I have since I started. It's wonderful to be a participant and know all of you. It's wonderful to meet you, Romeo.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Manu, how are you? And what would you like to get out of tonight?
I'm fine, just emerging. I see new faces. One Romeo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Welcome to the call.
Thank you.
Okay. I just expect to be on the train. I'm open. And Let's run. I don't know who's still. Is it Richard?
It's Romeo, actually.
Is
Fred,
who?
have you gone yet? Oh, shoot. Yeah,
Can-
it's Fred or Romeo, I think, is next, right?
Okay, Romeo, how do you feel? What do you expect?
Thank you, Mr. Wok. First of all, I would like to say that I'm really honored to be participating to this high-level meeting. I know you guys are geniuses because in order to understand the works of Bucky Fuller, it requires to be quite a genius. And I know that Steve and Manu and Mr. Calorici have a high understanding of this work from Mr. Fuller. So I hope that through you, I will be able to understand the works of Mr. Fuller better. And for this particular meeting, I hope to understand what space is and how to fill it and how to apply it in my daily life and in my project. So I will pass on to Richard. Richard, how do you feel and what do you expect to get from this meeting?
Or Richard shared first.
I'll take it. Thank you, Romeo. Richard has
You're
already
welcome.
spoken. Thank you. I feel highly energized, even my body's aching from yesterday's long walk in the forest. I usually walk along the river and it's flat and it's paved. And yesterday was up and down hills with with passes barely covered with stones, and everything was wet and covered with moss. So it was very slippery and dangerous, and my body aches because I had to do some movements that I'm not used to do, even though I'm quite a big walker. I'm thrilled that we have a new participant in the call. That increases the diversity, for one, gives us more opportunities to learn from each other, and also reduces the overloaded influence of North America, which is always a good thing. So that's my takeaway will be whatever comes my way, and I'll be happy to learn something. Anne, welcome to Sunday, and how are you feeling, and what is your expected takeaway for the call?
Yep. Hi, everybody. Good morning here. Good evening to all of you. And I think it's good. Yeah. And good afternoon. Manu is at what time? Very early in the morning. So it's still like night for you. Okay. And apologies for being 10 minutes late. Usually Sundays I have to take care of lunch as well. Not to cook. I just got to sort it out. Okay. Right. So good to be here. Always happy to be part of the meetings. And you know how we talk about energy, and we've talked about death as well. And so just Friday, I got a call from some very, very amazing people who wanted to, who are doing a lot of things. If the plans come through, they're going to be doing a lot of things on the world level, right? So the wife, his wife passed away, very, very close with us. Actually, on Saturday before, but I didn't pick up the call. I didn't manage to get that call earlier, so I got the call on Friday. The reason I'm sharing here is because we've been talking about a few times before about what happens when people pass on, right? And I like how the husband, she's 80 years old. She was 80 when she passed on, and how the husband actually spoke to me about her passing. And so we were very upset over here, to know that, to know of her passing. And he said, and his what she's been sent on earth to do, she's already completed it. Yeah. And now, so her spirit has moved on and to another level. And because he's also in his late 70s, and he said, And I know so very often when we've discussed, we talked about energy, yeah? And so that is something I wanted to share today. So after this our meeting and lunch, I will be heading on to her. I guess it would be a session for us all to come together to kind of wish her, because they cremated her in China. She was in China. They were in China. They landed in China and she passed away there. So they didn't have a chance to come back here. So the son brought her ashes back, and so that's what we're going for. Yeah. So anyway, I thought I'd share that. Thank you very much for. I didn't react like this when I heard the news, but talking about it has. Okay. Thank you for making space for this. So is it Steve's turn left, or is it?
It's Steve.
Yeah?
It's my turn.
Steve, how do you feel, and what would you like to take away today?
Well, I got to tell you that I'm very honored that you share, and I saw you catching some emotion there, and I can totally understand. I've had a couple of events in my life where I handled everything very logically, and all of a sudden it strikes me, and I see. And thank you for sharing, and thank you very much for sharing. So I'm excited about tonight. I'm not sure this concept we're working on here is really describing the shape of space. And what we're doing here is we are examining the jitterbug and how energy flows in the isotropic vector matrix. And I get a little part here and I get a little part there, and I'm excited that maybe I'll get a little part more, maybe, as we read on today. So, and this is about filling space. Over the last little bit, I've come to, I had an epiphany about after our Wednesday call, the idea that, and this call, I got the idea of the reason why a cube is not stable and the reason why a tetrahedron is stable is because the tetrahedron most closely represents the shape of space. And the cube does not. So the cube is not stable. It falls over. The tetrahedron is stable. Well, it came to my mind this last week that there's energy flowing in space. And when I strike a guitar note, it isn't that and I think as a person, I learned to think I'm going to create this sound or create this vibration. And I pluck a guitar string and I create a vibration. But what I'm doing is the vibration already exists in the universe, and my string is resonating with that vibration. So when I strike the guitar string, it's not causal. It's the result of what is. It's the result of space. And I've been dealing with that causality issue, and I'm still coping and putting things together. And we're going to read some more tonight to go for it and see what else happens. Any comments or questions before we jump into the reading?
I like what you just said, yeah, Steve.
Yeah.
I really like what you just said. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
And maybe, Anne, it goes along with the reason why my physical body manifests is because my energy body is present.
Mm.
And it's not that my physical body is causing me to be alive. Perhaps my physical body is simply resonating with that energy that exists in the universe. Maybe that applies to all of us when we appear to pass.
Mm.
The string stops vibrating. Doesn't mean that the vibration no longer exists. Well, I didn't intend to go there either, but thank you for sharing. Good. Any other comments or questions? I mean, that's
Yes,
heavy duty. Go ahead.
yes, Steve, I got a question.
Go ahead.
There's something you said that I didn't get. You talked about the cube not being stable. What do you mean by stable?
Well, if we take magnets and we build a cube,
Mm-hmm.
just like the square, let me just quickly put a square together. This is like, it took me several years to learn this, so I'm not convinced that here we go, and I'm going to get one more ball here and put it together. But Manu is usually the one who does this. So here's this square, and see, it's not stable.
Oh,
It's not stable. The energy, if the wind blows on this, it'll take any shape that happens to be energy enough to move the matter that's there. But if I take this square and I make a triangle, that puppy is not going anywhere unless I break it. That baby is stable. I can twist it anywhere. So that's the concept that we're going through here on these as we discuss these topics. Cool. Okay, any other comments or questions? All right, we're going to read today. I don't mind reading the first paragraph or so. We're starting at the bottom of the page here on this filling space. And here we go. Filling space. Cubes stacked neatly together to fill space. What other polyhedra exhibit this property? Attempts to fit regular tetrahedra together are quickly frustrated. Likewise for octahedra. However, working together, the two shapes can fill space indefinitely. None of this is new information. We discovered the complementarity of the octahedra and tetrahedra while exploring isometric rays of both spheres and vectors. Subsequently, multiplication by division uncovered the octahedron hiding inside every tetrahedron. The octahedron-tetrahedron marriage is clearly an eternal bond. Kind of like what I said. Neither icosahedra or pentagonal dodecahedra can fill all space. Icosahedra, though symmetrical in themselves, will not close pack with another or with any other symmetrical polyhedra. That's from Synergetics 910. The cube thus stands alone among regular polyhedra. And here's a picture of the octahedron existing in a cube. Actually, this is existing in 8 cubes. Complementarity. But let's reevaluate our apparently simple array of cubes. As the obvious solution to filling all space with a single polyhedron, this packing seems to provide the most straightforward information about the shape of space. But look further. What if you could see the cube's face diagonals? An implied tetrahedron awaits visibly. Now imagine filling in necessary diagonals so that the inscribed tetrahedron, surrounded by 4 1/8 octahedra, appears in each cube. At every junction of 8 cubes, the octahedral parts come together and form one complete octahedron around each cubical corner, figure 12.2 below. As rectilinear boxes are unstable without diagonal bracing, as we pointed out, Romeo, the cube or the square is rectilinear. They are unstable without any diagonal bracing. And a stabilized packing of cubes turns into an octet truss. Whether visible or not, the octet symmetry is implicit in the configuration. Any comments or questions so far? Okay. Part of me really gets it. but there's another part of me that doesn't. Manu, go ahead. Be sure to unmute, my friend.
All right. This is quite simple if you remember the principle of duality. The cube and the octahedron are duals. The cube and the octahedron are duals. That is, if you take the 8 faces of the octahedron and you take the midpoint of them and you join them together, you have a cube. So the first derivation of the octahedron gives you a cube. Let me repeat again. If you take an octahedron like this octahedron has 8 faces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you take the midpoint of a face, that is what you call the center of gravity of the triangle, which is always 1/3 from this base to the apex that is opposed to that base. And if you join those 8 points, it gives you a cube. And vice versa. That's what she called the nesting of the octahedron in the cube, or the nesting of a cube in the octahedron.
Mm.
And every time when you take that middle like that, if you put the cube here and you're going to have 1/8 tetrahedra that complete the space.
Wait, say it again. The 1/8 what?
1/8 tetrahedra. 1/8 in volume of tetrahedra.
Oh, okay, okay.
The
Okay.
8 quanta.
Got it.
You always find that. So remember the help of a duality. It helps a lot in the topological understanding of what it is. The octahedron and the cube that Steve showed are duals. And the duality also means that the two of them fill the whole space. They're dense for the purpose of something. So if you take this octahedron like this, and you take the midpoint of these faces, like that, there are 8 points that are there, and you link them with edges, you're going to obtain a cube. You're going to obtain a cube, and that cube, and if you look at the volume that the octahedron represented and the nested cube that is inside, you're going to find that there is remaining 1/8 times 8 of tetrahedron around it.
Are you complete?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to show a picture of that duality. Hopefully it's showing. And hopefully I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. There's going to be a time when I'm going to get a really fast computer. So there is the duality of the octahedron and the cube. And the 1/8 octa, we've talked about that before. So I'm not sure I understood all the math and the volume calculations, Manu, but I do understand the duality. Do you want to comment
1/8,
further?
if you take each of the 8 faces and you take what takes that face to fill to the cube. Let's just take where the octahedron is nested. You take that face, there is tetrahedron that will fill a space to the cube. And you take each of the faces, you're going to have those tetrahedrons. So you're going to have a tessellation of the space that is remaining, made of 8 tetrahedra. Just consider each of the faces as the face of a tetrahedron. And you put that together on all the faces, it's going to fill a cube.
I'll tell you, when I retire one day, I'm going to go through, as I've discussed, and I'm going to animate all of these graphics because I can see this more clearly than I've ever seen it before. And yet I'd be suffering for words to explain it. I mean, maybe you see it, maybe it's obvious. The point of this octahedron is right dead center at the top of that square of the cube. And in fact, this point on this octahedron is dead center in this side or this face of the cube. This point is dead center in the face of this, and this point is dead center in the face over here. And opposite back here, there's a point. So it's all multiplication by division, by dividing it by hitting that midpoint. So I don't know. Any other comments or?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Manu, because you know, I'm trying to figure out this diagram in the book, right? And then suddenly you tell us, you're describing that how to get the cube inside the octahedra, right? Octahedron. And then suddenly, you know, this comes back to that fractal wholeness that we talked about, right? We've been discussing. And but just by describing it, suddenly, okay, we've been taking it, we've talked about it, but suddenly it's so much clearer. Trying to figure out this drawing, this diagram. Yeah, and that's one of the other things, you know, I think we talked about that wham, that moment of aha, that just hit me. So thank you very much, Manu, for that. And the diagram, Steve, when you showed it, yeah. Thank you.
Oh. All right. We can continue.
Can I just share something also, because I think
Please.
For Lee and do we address Romeo, is it?
Romeo.
Your first name? Okay. Yeah, I think just bear with it, as in I was completely confused as well. But what happens is that along the way, as we go down this path, what becomes amazing is because we in the diagram we see a cube and an octahedra, right? Octahedron. However, what we don't see is actually the cube is sitting inside another octahedron that is way bigger, and that big octahedron is sitting inside another cube, and it goes outwards big and it also goes down small. Inside the octahedron, inside the cube is another cube, and inside that cube will be another octahedron. So that is just something that's really amazing. And we're just talking about this thing going in and out. We're not even talking about maybe another cube stacked on top of that, and then there's another octahedron there. And it's, correct me if I'm wrong, guys.
No, you got it. That's the fractal. It's the fractal aspect of the duality. Go ahead, Manu.
And just talk about what Steve, you talk about the hypercube all the time. And remember this thing, like you see one into the other, and then you can reverse this thing. But remember, in mathematics, whenever you do a derivation, you end up with something that is a solution to, how will I call it, a polynomial equation that is a derivative and a constant. No, when you do the
reverse,
the reverse, and that constant here, when you look at that figure, is the 1/8. And that also is the understanding of a very famous theorem in mathematics. That is the theorem of residues. The theorem of residues says that if you have any domain that is regular, and then you have irregular things, think of catalysts that you can have in a mixture. A catalyst is not part of your thing, but the value of your chemical reaction will be determined by that catalyst. In mathematics, it says if you do the integration on that domain, where the domain is regular, is going to cancel each other. Whatever is going to left is that residual. And that residual, therefore, determine the full value of whatever you are looking for. An application, a direct application of it is catalytic component that you add. For example, in oil, if you take a normal distillation, a normal refinery, we go into what you call reformation. That's basically, it does not break the molecule of the hydrocarbon that is in there. You heat the stuff and you cool it in a column and recover full component of the hydrocarbon of a crude. When you talk about catalytic cracking in oil, you just add a little component. And that component, what it does, it breaks the molecule. And then you have a richer yield of your refining process. That's why it is so expensive to have a refinery that does catalytic cracking. That's the way, for example, you break very heavy crudes or bitumen into, the tar sands of Canada. How do you convert the tar sand that you have into component that you can run into a small automobile? You break the molecules of a tar to make the lighter component. If you just heat it, it will never happen. That was my point there. So the fact that when you do the derivation, that remaining is, and that when you do the integration, that remaining is there, is a constant. And that constant has a very, very significant influence on the outcome of your application that you are pursuing. Maybe Fred can comment on this, but.
You have anything to share, Fred? Richard has his hand up.
I'm putting a definition of catalyst in the chat for everybody.
Okay. Richard, do you want to?
Yeah,
share?
I'm really interested in the last paragraph of that page, but talking about the Greeks failing to get at the triangular heart and became sort of focused or obsessed on finding the basic building block. And basically saying, had they experimented with the triangular tetrahedral side of things, we wouldn't have been so preoccupied over the centuries of thinking the cube and the square were the kind of fundamental geometric shape or form. And the way in which Manu explains all this, it sort of raises a question in my mind is how come they missed it? In terms of all the mathematical geometric things that Manu can sort of share with us, and how there is still this preoccupation with the idea of finding the root cause or the basic building block, and we are stuck in the assumption that the square and the cube are the central sort of figures. And so I'm curious as to what we think as to why did the Greeks miss that? Why have we been misled, as in the quote that says that now 2,000 years later, has humanity in a lethal bind of 99% scientific illiteracy. That's a powerful statement.
Yeah. And adding to that, yeah, Richard, because every time we discover, or I discover more coming into our meetings, the how big the issue is, that we have to deal with, because you literally have to change it all the way down to the basics of science and math from the young age. But the problem is, there's a whole world you have to change. It's a whole entire world, talking about billions of people, and education is the second slowest industry to change. Yeah, by the way, that is actually in Robert Kiyosaki's book. It's the second slowest industry to change. They hold on to it; they won't change. So, and we're going to be perpetuating this for easily another 20 years, easily, until somebody who's got a voice that loud that can really, really change out how education has to tweak it all the way down to the little kids. So yeah, it's that big a problem.
Thank you, Hannah.
I'm complete there.
Fred, do you want to explain what you?
I shared a page on of critical path where Bucky explains square structure, which is unstable, that has been developed on land, and triangular structures that are stable and have been developed by maritime cultures.
Figure 4a, strip X. Strip X cannot be spread above A points nor lowered below B points. Ergo, three-way weaves are inseparable, therefore provide stable pattern and stable structure.
Yeah. Then he goes on to say that this stable structure are the only type of structures that resist the abuse of the sea on boats and sails and structures, and that maritime seagoing seafarers, seagoing cultures have developed that, whereas land-bound cultures have always stuck to square and cube. That's what I wanted to share, because it brings us back to our very, very beginning of the course.
Yeah. And so, Richard, you kind of read ahead. Any comments or questions so far? We got a couple comments in the
Just
thing.
a comment.
Okay.
This idea is so entrenched. I have a friend of mine who is a very good engineer. And I told him the cube is not stable. Yeah, and he told me I'm a liar. That I'm not a liar. He said I'm not correct. Because it's always, every cube that is seen is braced. And they neglect the brace. right? They see, sorry, take away, all right. They see the cube and don't see inside that there is a brace, diagonal brace. And building is a civil engineer. Building all structure that way, it does not realize that that cube is unstable. The second thing the second comment that I make is that when you take our education, it starts with our moms. Our moms are protective. You know, but baby, they're protective. They teach us stability. And they completely make us become oblivious that we live in a dynamic world that is moving. Therefore, they put us in squares that they hold from outside to make them stable. And then our brains are kind of wiring that the cube is stable.
Mm-hmm.
So if in education, early on, children could find a way to make children grasp the fact that you always have that tensegrity, that you have a fixed part, a stable part, and an unstable part that are always, and they're dense in a changing way. And that's what we call energy flow. I think that it will, in terms of real education, that is to draw out of them their potential, it will be quantum leaps in terms of that manifestation.
You complete? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna, Richard kind of read ahead on us. And
Oh, I thought we'd
Right.
read that. Oh, sorry.
I don't think so. Part of me wants to say, well, why don't you go ahead and read it,
Yeah, well,
Richard?
but that's all like connected to the diagram 12.2.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I guess we hadn't read that, failed to get the.
Okay.
So let's read it, and I still want to come back to that because I'm curious as to, the Greeks had the 5 Platonic solids, which is cubes and squares, or I mean, and triangles and so forth. And it's such a powerful statement about saying that they failed to get at the triangulated heart. And since they're such a core part of our history and legacy, it's kind of like, what accounts for their failure? And the fact that somebody like Fuller now will say that we're 99% scientific illiterate. Wow. I mean, that sort of gives the anti-science people something to kind of weaponize against the pro-science people. Yeah. Anyway, let's go on and read it, and maybe there's some dialogue that comes out of this in terms of how come the Greeks were blind to this triangular heart of their stack of cubes.
You want to read?
Sure. Is that where we start?
Yeah, right there with the Greeks. You read ahead on us, and we want to catch up with you.
All right. The Greeks failed to get the triangulated heart of their stack of cubes, philosophized Bucky. For like all humans, they were innately intent upon finding the building block of universe. Had they experimented with arranging tetrahedra vertex to vertex and been confronted with the inescapable octahedral cavities, he continues, they would have anticipated the physicist's 1922 discovery of fundamental complementarity. And I raised the question in that as to whether complementarity and duality are deeply connected. But the Greeks did not do so. And they tied up humanity's accounting with the cube, which now, 2,000 years later, has humanity in a lethal bind of 99% scientific illiteracy. Wow, no wonder the scientists don't like Fuller. Funded
But
by the
they did so, the Greek did so because they learned from the priest. Remember, the priests were initiated, and actually, priests died with the science. They were the first discoverers of those principles. Basically, in Mesopotamia and Egypt.
Plato.
Then,
Go ahead.
yes, then they kind of half initiated Greeks. Plato spent a lot of time in Egypt. And the Greeks were expansionists. The Greeks were imperialistic. The Greeks wanted to make it public. If you look at the way Plato and the others practice, they brought science to the public realm. And the priests, they were monks. They were in temples, in places where they kept those things. So they have showed the Greek. And that's probably why the Greeks never had it. But you can't say that it is only in 1922 that it was discovered. It was new, it was known thousands of years before. The initiated knew about it.
And just as a point of history, Plato was from 428 BC to 347 BC, and then Euclidean geometry, was 325 to 265 BC. So as Plato died, years later, 50 years later, or 25 years later, Euclid was born, and we have Euclidean geometry, which I think is.
But let's know that Plato and Euclid didn't invent much. That is okay. This is a point of controversy. It's been hidden and it's been whatever. It is known that there existed ancient sacred science.
Yeah.
That had all of these things. And these guys, they visited, they got it, some of it, and they went about spreading it, which I think the priests didn't like. So they didn't get the complete. They were not fully initiated in mathematics and in physics and in sciences. They were not.
That's right. And I think that Plato understood these structures fairly well, but when Euclid got a hold of it, it became a different matter. And I do agree with you that these things were held as sacred. It's the same thing between Tantra sexuality and the Kama Sutra. I mean, one is about form and the other is about the essence. And so, but to go back to Richard's point here, the Greeks maybe had it, but by the time Euclid had it, and I probably could, if Plato went to Egypt, the Egyptians certainly had it. I mean, the Egyptians understood octahedra and pyramids, right? And probably a lot more. So very interesting. How far did you get down here? Oh, go ahead, Anne.
I have a question because we've been talking about, people talk about universal and ancient geometry, sacred geometry, and universal principles, etc. Right? So the part about the ancient geometry and how far does that go back to? Because when they talk about ancient, so are they going back all the way to beyond before even the Greeks?
Sure.
Or
yes.
Yeah, if you study Masonic layer, Masonic lore, the
How
Masons
far
go
back
back.
is that?
The Masons go back to the Egyptians,
Ah,
and the Egyptians preceded the Greeks by a long shot. And probably, if you're into all the stuff, it could be Atlantean even. If you're into
And Chinese.
and Chinese.
mm,
And Chinese. Chinese go back a long way, a long way.
Yeah. But yeah, so
got it. Thank you.
yeah,
And there are things that have been discovered lately in Africa, actually, in sub-Saharan Africa, that tell stories that are very different from what we know.
yeah.
Mm,
Just let it, it's going to evolve as our investigative power increases and then artifacts are unearthed. For example, here in Southern Africa, the artifacts of exchange thousands of years ago between Southern Africa and China.
Yeah.
mm.
Yeah. For sure.
How do you think that you don't think that people travel from from Indonesia to Madagascar, all these places in Africa, just on rafts?
Yeah. No.
No,
In
they
fact-
knew about navigation.
In
Yes.
fact, they've discovered Near Eastern jade in the Far East along the Yangtze River. So there was travels from China through to Egypt and into Syria, into all of those places. That was ancient. Yeah. And I want to comment about, I reluct a little bit, but I want to comment because I've been thinking about priesthood. And what does priesthood mean? And Mano points out that it was the priests that held all this science, and there was quite a deep understanding about it. And then Plato might have had a huge understanding, but he gave us the solids. But then what we've done with it since then is we've kind of lost whatever else came with that soup in the first place. And it was the priests who maintained it. I mean, Ptolemy was a priest, right? The Ptolemaic system. And then Copernicus was a priest. I mean, these are in Western science, even the priests are the scientists. And this
Euler
Euler.
was a priest.
Yeah. And this goes back, that's a long tradition. I think Manu points out a really good point that the math was kept by the priests.
Well,
Because
if
they
you
did everything.
extend my question, then we shift if you want the failure off of the Greeks and you put it onto the priests.
Well, the
Um,
priests didn't want to let anybody know about it. There were blood oaths back in those days that if you revealed this stuff, you were a goner. I mean, they really kept it. They didn't want it diluted. The priests. This is where the Templars come from. The Masonic order comes from, and the Mormons have a big history of Masonic
Right.
interwoven history. In fact, some people believe that Joseph Smith was killed by Masons because Joseph Smith took the Masonic ordinances. The guys had been Masons for 30 years, and people would join the Mormon church and they'd be 32nd degree Masons in 6 months. And, Masons were not happy about that because they thought that learning needed to come through experience. You didn't just take you just can't, here's the math, there it is. No, you had to experience it and have that deeper understanding. And so those things were held sacred. I don't know much about it, but I know that much. And it may be distorted. Cool.
Okay. Let's progress the reading.
Yeah, let's progress with the reading. I don't know how far down you got, Richard. How far down did you go?
I think he has to start with fueled by the development of 20th century
Yeah.
physics.
So fueled by the developments of 20th century physics, which is also interesting for me, Fuller spoke frequently and emphatically of the inherent complementarity of universe.
Yes.
He cites 2 examples of particular out of the many provided by quantum physics. First, the complementarity principle announced by Niels Bohr, in 1928, which goes hand in hand with
Heisenberg.
Heisenberg's indeterminism.
Yes.
Bohr summarizes the basic feature of quantum physics by stating that experimental evidence cannot be comprehended within a single frame, but
Yes.
rather must be understood as complementary or partial information. The total of a phenomena must therefore be represented through more than one complementary part, for all aspects cannot be accurately measured simultaneously. Fuller also calls our attention to a later Nobel-winning development made by two Chinese physicists working in the U.S. in 1957. Sung-Dao Lee and Chungning Yang were honored for their discovery that parity is not conserved in weak interactions. For the subatomic particles involved show handedness. In other words, simplifies Bucky, fundamental complementarity does not consist of mere image pairs. Concave, convex, tension, compression, proton, neutron, male, female. Universe is always plural, supporting interdependent, inseparable pairs, which are not simply mirror image halves. It is thus reassuringly consistent that the essence of structure and space should also exhibit this fundamental dualism. There is no single building block of universe.
Wow.
You know, what's interesting is that there are a lot of dudes now like Donald Hoffman and like Stephen Wolfram is actually using mathematical formulas to show that there's an underlying structure, and that you can take very simple elements and create very simple rules and see infinite number of possibilities, a finite number of infinite possibilities that can develop. And so, you know, Stephen Wolfram maybe has a new theory of everything, and it's basically this kind of like understructure, and that atoms and molecules are simply artifacts of reality that exists at some other level.
Again, this gets into the struggles I've been having over the years, is that if we've been dominated by what I call the pre-20th century science, Greek-based science maybe, and we have the 20th century sciences doing things like we just read as early as 1928, that's almost 100 years ago. And the fundamentals of all of that unfolding in this last century have not filtered into the basic education system. And I just find that more and more intriguing that here we are. For me, I always talk about the 20th century and beyond. So we're sitting here today, a century and a quarter away from this new understanding, and it's not a fundamental part of basic education. At least as far as I know, it isn't.
It isn't.
Okay.
And I will add, sorry, Manu, you want to go first?
Okay,
Yeah,
I can go.
Let me just say
Okay.
that Fred is emphasizing the Stephen Wolfram thing.
Oh.
There he's sharing the book.
I want to be provocative here.
You want what?
To be provocative.
When Wayne was preparing for his first holiday, I sent him the book in the hope that he would keep busy reading it.
Okay.
You sent that to Wayne?
Yes.
Ah, very cool.
Can we do that the
Okay.
next book?
Yeah, that
I'm
would
sorry?
be amazing.
All right.
We'll
I'm
put
Can
that
I
sorry,
be
down.
pro-
Anne, what did you say?
She said Anne wants to do that for our next study.
That's a 1,000 pages book.
Yeah. 1,000 pages.
What?
Yeah.
1,200 pages.
Oops.
Yeah. Maybe there's a Stephen Wolfram for idiots.
Well, actually, it's not very complicated. It's
Yeah.
his approach is very interesting, but it's not unapproachable.
Yeah.
There's no very strong formulas and stuff like this, but the approach is
And I see a
extraordinary.
lot of
We
triangles.
can
in
we,
his
we can
diagrams.
do some stuff out of it. It's not. It's quite interesting actually. So very simple rules lead to so much complexity or even chaos.
He runs very simple rules, and then he lets the formula run, and the derivations that come up actually start to create a universe. And he sees a couple of his diagrams as black holes being created, and then merging. And so it's quite Stephen Wolfram is very
He
interesting.
links that to information theory, and
Yes.
information theory leads to black holes because information theory leads to everything.
And as I mentioned before, some people believe that with a black hole, the information moves to the outside and becomes two-dimensional over this black hole that is so dense that nothing can be in there. So information sits outside the black hole. Isn't that interesting? Who knows? Okay, so Anne, are you complete?
And I think Manu will speak
Yeah,
first.
Manu's busting a gut, so I want to make sure that you're complete. Okay, Manu.
I want to be provocative and say this. The tetrahedron is actually the first fractal of a never fluctuant universe.
Blockchain, is that what you said?
The first fractal, the first stability.
Yeah.
You need, we know that there are 4 quarks that make the first pyramid, the first tetrahedron, and which is the unit of energy. And I claim that a tetrahedron is the first level stability that you have in universe. So because otherwise everything is always flowing. Everything is flowing. Everything is how will I call it, ethereal. Let's use the word ether again, as existed before. Everything is ethereal until under certain conditions. There is the first that come and is at minimum. So the how would I call it? The physical manifestation is always a projection of something that is happening that we don't witness, that we don't see. The causal of it is always not seen. The first stable manifestation that we can see in terms of a pattern is the tetrahedron. Let's give it a thought. Maybe it's going to lead us to nothingness, but.
Okay. Everybody complete?
Yeah, I want. I have something to add to what Richard said. Yeah, because Richard, you said that it hasn't shown up in education, right? I want to share with you the difficulty with education, because this is over the years dealing with teachers who are handling math and sciences, right? Most of them are really not open to the new information, you know, and they will base it on the scientific facts that they know, right? A lot of the arguments, but it's based on facts. So there itself is a huge issue, and because whatever they're learning is very disconnected from other aspects. We just know that everything is connected to everything else, right? So the teachers generally, they do science and math, they don't really stay for long because it is very taxing. I share with you what I mean. Because the way we teach our math and the sciences, it includes creativity, it includes transferring behavior, not just content, right, and knowledge. So transferring behavior means that you got to get kids to be creative, you got to get them to be empathetic, you got to get them to work with one another, which generally in Asia, the classes and the textbooks and whatever activities run does not show up in that manner, right? So for a lot of the teachers, it is and many of them are, because the way they think is very logical and very linear. Many, I'm not saying all. So I give you what I mean by this linear thinking. In Asia, they won't take on STEM subjects, in a lot of the schools, not just in Malaysia, in Hong Kong and other countries around this area. They won't take on STEM, the science teachers won't, because they either they know bio, then they say, but there's physics and chemistry in there, I can't do this. And if you talk to a physics teacher, but there is also like creativity and there's biology and chemistry in there. I don't know that, so I can't take it on. So they don't do STEM in the regular classes. So, but for us, we have another layer where they have to transform the children's behavior and who they are. So the human component comes in. So it is so taxing that we have some teachers changing schools to go teach another school because it's easier. They don't have to include all this. No math teachers have to teach singing, right? Whereas in our classes, to do multiplication table, they have to sing songs, anchor the table, right? And then you don't need to teach in primary 1 and 2. You don't need to teach geometry and algebra and distance, area, and volume. No Asian teachers at primary level, things like that, right? So you get where I'm going with it. So it's a huge issue now. Then the other thing that we face is that if you teach this only to the math and the science people, then my econs people and accounting people are teaching all the wrong stuff, right? Because I brought it up before, but now I'm linking it because my math and my econs and accounting people will look at the world from a space of scarcity, because that's the basis, the foundation of economics. Management of scarce resources, the definition, right? But then when we look at the science, the world is eternally regenerative. Cosmic accounting has no bankruptcy, and nature has no pollution. It doesn't fit. It really doesn't fit, right? So I've talked to my economics people separately. And now I'm going to have to talk to get the math people going first, so my principals and all that, they're aware of it, but to go to ground. Now, herein lies another problem. Teachers don't stay, new ones come in. So you got to keep training them up, right? Although luckily for me, about 60% of my people stay, right? But then you have another issue. Now that we are providing education into Vietnam. We just signed a deal with this center in Vietnam to grow more centers on getting the kids prepped for exams and the tutoring, and they want to know what we do. They are further behind than even Malaysia itself. Let's not even talk about my teachers, right? Then we're also in Indonesia, and they're fighting back on that. The teachers are saying they can't do this. It's too difficult. So I'm just sharing with you that teaching math or science and giving them this part of it is not enough. You literally have to deal with all teachers who grew up learning all this. And then you have another huge problem, which is the parents. You give, like we teach the kids so many things more, and the parents can't see it, and they think that we are not teaching it like other schools where they get a lot of worksheets and practicing the basic things over and over and over again. So I just share with you how big the problem is. Yeah? But we are working on all these. Yeah, we just had a talk with the parents as to we realized we hadn't shown them how we were teaching math in like the whole big picture all the way down, because we hadn't figured out how to show it to them, but we finally did. The parents were appreciating that. So now it looks like we got to go a lot more. But anyway, that's what it is. Yeah, it's massive. So I'm quite complete there.
I think it was Richard shared last week about the kid who wouldn't explain the Bucky principle in class, and the teacher made him stay after class and said, "I will not lie."
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the kind of.
Yeah, I have a lot of parents pulling their kids out to go to outside tuition, right? Not pulling out of the school, but getting help outside, because we are not teaching the shortcuts, and we don't teach shortcuts first. We go for concepts first, and then our concepts is at a higher level pulled down. And the other issue that crops up also is that we start at the end, we show the big picture, and the parents don't get that either. So it's and then they see the singing and the crazy stuff we do in the classes as and being not serious about education. That I have to tell the parents, and I can tell if they are there for me to tell, that we are very serious about fun, right? We're very serious about fun. You know, it's about getting the kids to do it well. But this is Asia. Yeah.
Yeah. Brad.
What's the limit age for enrollment in your school?
Kindergarten.
Can I enroll?
Fred, thank you.
I would like to start again.
Yeah, but even then, it's still not at this level. You know, I would like to take it there, but you can't change out the teachers all the way down to that level. Yeah, but combining.
What attracts me is little songs about science, because I see people go to church every Sunday. They get together and they're very happy singing little songs about their beliefs and all that. I would like to have a group with little songs about science. That would be.
But the science, what they're learning, the science is not complete. It is at 99% blind. What's the term used? Blind literacy. Yeah. Illiterate, blindly illiterate. Yeah, illiterate blindness. Yes. The songs are like that. It's a problem.
Wow. Cool. Okay. Are we ready to? We've got a few more minutes of reading here, and I think we can actually. I'm not sure what we can do here. We'll just continue to read as much as we can. Got down to blocks of the universe. Anybody else want to read?
Okay, I'll try.
Okay.
Other space fillers. The role played by tetrahedra and octahedra in an array of cubes, not to mention in the IVM, demonstrates that these two structures combine to create a variety of polyhedra. This observation suggests an operational strategy. Experiment with various combinations in the hope of finding other space fillers. Two tetrahedra are affixed to opposite faces of an octahedron with the same H length. Supplementary dihedral angles cause adjacent triangular faces to be coplanar, thereby merging into 6 rhombic faces, figure 9-8. The resulting slanted structure introduced in chapter 9 is called a rhombohedron and can be thought of as a partially flattened cube. 6 squares have simply been squashed into diamonds. It's not hard to imagine that an entire array of toothpick cubes could lean over in unison, transforming into an array of distorted cubes.
Right on.
Yeah. Rhombohedra therefore fill space. The simplicity of this development hints at a starting point. In his contribution to synergetics, Loeb analyzes various polyhedra for their divisibility into tetrahedra and octahedra, and demonstrates that a shape which will fill space if it consists of 2 tetrahedra for every 1 octahedron. Suddenly, out of randomness, an order emerges, and trial and error is replaced by a generalized principle. The ability to fill all space can be added to the list of descriptive properties such as stability, symmetry, duality, by which we categorize the scattered cast of polyhedral characters. And now, armed with Loeb's conclusive analysis, we will continue to explore the puzzle from a slightly different frame of reference.
Cool. Comments, questions? Let's keep rolling.
There is shape that was discovered 10, 15 years ago, which cannot be filled with tetrahedra. And I do not know if that shape can be filled with what the combination.
Rhomba.
Yes, that combination.
What was I thinking?
The combination described here. I don't know. But I don't know the whole history of that. It seems like they already knew in 1980 something that not all shapes could be filled with tetrahedra. So I don't know what the big deal with the history of this shape that they discovered a few years ago that cannot be filled with tetrahedra. Maybe Manu knows.
Maybe Google knows.
I can just say something here. All shape cannot be filled by a tetrahedra.
Yes.
Just think about what we learned. Structure and the phi. The phi cannot be filled. The phi part cannot be filled by tetrahedron. Otherwise, it will be part of a structure. Remember, you can arrange everything into the structure part. I mean, if you take Steve, how do you call them, Steve? The zones of anyway, if you take that, you have what you call the structure part.
Irrelevancy. Circles of irrelevance.
Yes. Relevancy is the structure part. It's structure. You know, you can measure energy into that very clear by unit of tetrahedron. Then you have around it the phi. The phi, we saw that you take ratios of tetrahedra and you use a series, infinite series, to try to reach, say, for example, the golden ratio. And that cannot be filled with tetrahedra.
Makes sense.
Okay? It is still part of universe. It cannot be filled with tetrahedra. So those things that are at the margin of our structural world, we can't fill them with our tetrahedra. Not to think about the parallel ones, the pi one. Because here is just the phi portion of it. And then we had the pi. That is a parallel in that I have my sphere here, where in principle, there could be another sphere like that. That is convex to me, and which live parallel to mine.
Cool.
Right? That is not excluded. That was what I wanted to say about it.
Cool. Okay. Who wants to continue reading? You want to continue, Anne? The search continues.
Okay, I can. Okay, sure. The search continues. The IVM simplifies our task, providing a frame of reference which itself fills space. All of the polyhedra covered so far, with the exception of the icosahedron and pentagonal dodecahedron, are outlined within the IVM and the IVM framework by various combinations of octahedral and tetrahedral components, both parts and wholes. We can therefore survey the matrix to ascertain which of these systems are able to meet face-to-face without intervening cavities. Polyhedra that fit together without gaps must completely surround a common vertex. IVM vertices, therefore, provide a good starting point. We can systematically investigate the different types of nodes in the matrix, checking the surrounding cells for space-filling polyhedra. Our first node reveals an already familiar space-filling team. Each IVM vertex joins 6 octahedra and 8 tetrahedra, as well as polyhedral combinations of the two. The most obvious of these combinations is the vector equilibrium, and our study of the IVM already made it clear that VEs do not fill space, but rather must cooperate with octahedra to create an uninterrupted array, providing yet another example of complementarity. The necessity of this pairing follows directly from octahedron-tetrahedron interdependence.
Oops, sorry.
It's okay. Chapter 13 will elaborate on such space-filling teams which arise out of the 2-to-1 ratio mentioned above. Do we stop there?
Oh, I'm ready to keep reading. Everybody else okay?
Oh.
Any comments?
I think there's another paragraph.
Was there?
Yeah, next page, I think.
They said chapter 13 will elaborate, right?
Yeah, but there's another paragraph to
There's
finish that
2
section.
paragraphs to finish up
All
that
right.
section.
Yeah. And that starts here, right? Am I right? I think I'm at the right place.
Okay.
You are.
Oh, yes. Sorry, it doesn't. It's a whole page, sorry.
Yeah.
Do you want to carry on?
I'll read if you're
You carry on, Steve.
okay. Our next step is to investigate other vertices. Interconnecting the centers of octahedra, we trace the array of minimum cubes. That one's easy. The fact that all cubes fill space is not new. What else can we learn? If octahedron centers provide the meeting points of 8 cubes, that what happens at the center of the tetrahedra? To begin with, we observe that 4 1/4 tetrahedra convene. The base of each shallow pyramid is the face of a neighboring octahedron. So we ask what shape is created by an octahedron framed by 8 1/4 tetrahedra, as seen in chapter 9. This is equivalent to Loeb's degenerate stellation. The thin triangular faces of adjacent 1/4 tetrahedra become coplanar when surrounding an octahedron, and thereby merge into one diamond face. The result, a rhombic dodecahedron, figure 912. In the IVM context, this means that every octahedron reaches out, incorporating 8 neighboring 1/4 tetrahedra, so that the tetrahedra are completely used up, no leftovers. The entire matrix is thus involved, meaning, of course, that the rhombic dodecahedra fill space. By interconnecting the centers of every tetrahedron on the IVM, we automatically generate an array of rhombic dodecahedra. The space-filling puzzle becomes more enticing with the new addition. With its many diamond faces and irregular surface angles, this shape is not, like the cube, an obvious space filler. A causal observer will not suspect this intricate polyhedron of fitting so beautifully together. In fact, without the advantage of the IVM, it is difficult to picture how rhombic dodecahedra managed to fill space. Boy, I'll tell you, I understand some of those words.
There is one overwhelming method. One, he said, if you take the vector equilibrium and you take the centers, taking the centers, meaning what? What does it mean also in mathematics?
Nucleus.
derivative. Remember,
I was going to
you
say
take
center of
this.
gravity.
Yes, you take the centers of the faces and you join them together by edges. That is a method for finding the dual.
Cool. And I think we can read about dual perspective and see a diagram, and maybe that'll clarify, and that could be our last reading for tonight. Let's proceed, shall we? Are you complete, Mama?
Yes, I'm complete.
All right. The dual perspective, recalling from chapter 4 that the rhombic dodecahedron is also a degenerately stellated cube. It is interesting to observe the relationship between the two packings. A cube with 4 body diagonals dividing the inside into 6 pyramids is shown in figure 12.3 on the next page. We'll get there in a second. These square-based pyramids are the exact shape required to be degenerately stellate a second cube, We can unwrap that subdivided cube and place its components on the 6 faces of the second intact cube, only to arrive once again at our diamond-faced friend, 12.3b. We will therefore have a new way to visualize the rhombic dodecahedron packing. Start with any array of cubes in which each other cube is subdivided by a central node, and while the rest remain empty. We have just described an array of rhombic dodecahedra, figure 12.3c. A framework of cubes is so familiar and readily imagined with that exercise, brings the rhombic dodecahedron space filling capability into easy grasp. So here's that cube connected with edges. And this is probably a rhombic dodecahedron. And then
The rhombic dodecahedron basically connects the diagonals.
I'm not sure I get the relationship between figure A and figure B. There's the cube inside there. I see the cube.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's the stellation. I remember that
the
time.
stellation, yeah.
Yes, the stellation.
Yes.
So the stellation is forming the quarter of the next cube. It's
Yeah, there's
taken
a
from the
pyramid.
quarter of the cube that's attached.
Right.
Oh, this is crazy.
And if you take this stellation and add it to this stellation, you have an octahedron. If you take opposite stellations and stick them together. Whoa.
So you say, in A, you subdivided and then you took all of those parts outside and you put them together and they form.
I see.
Definitely.
You basically
Yes.
invert these. Instead of having the pyramid go out like it does here, it just simply went in over here. So we pop them out.
Do you know what is done in general? We talk about it. When we talk all the time, we talk about a tetrahedron. We're just talking about the structure. We're talking about the vertices and the edges and the faces. We don't talk about what is the content of a of the cube or of the tetrahedron. The content is the dual of the envelopes, that is of the polyhedron, to make the whole, right? To make the whole tetrahedron, isn't it? If I take a tetrahedron, I don't even have one yet. But if you take a tetrahedron, the way we explain, we define it in terms of solid, platonic solid. We define it in terms of its vertices, its edges, and its faces. That's basically the boundary of the tetrahedron. We don't talk about the content of it. Here is a method for understanding what that content is. In the context of a cube, you took the the diagonals, and then you divided them, you know, opposite, you divided into 6, and then you externalize those now, and you put, take those pieces, like a cheese. It's basically, if you take a piece of cheese that is cubic, and then you cut it like that, according to the diagonal, you have those 6 parts. Now take those parts out now and invert them and put them together to form a block. That gives you B. Let me repeat it. If I take a cube, a cheese, a piece of cheese, and I stellate it, or I cut it into part, going through like she did there, you see that you have plans that go like that, like that, like that. So you have 6 parts that fit together to make the cube there. Now take those parts out and now join them, not according to the faces of your cut, but according to the outside faces. It's going to form the rhombic dodecahedron that you have there.
You know, I did find a video that showed this while we were talking before, that showed how you would stellate a cube with the cube octahedron shape. But anyway, I think we're pretty much getting that picture, aren't we?
Yeah, and actually,
Let's all try, please. Let's all try the cheese stuff for next Sunday. Let's all try to take a piece of cheese, make a cube, and cut it according to A there. Cut it like A, and see, and then work with the pieces to
Might
try
be
to
good to
put
have
them
2
together.
cubes of cheese, 2 cubes of cheese, so you can cut the one up into the 1/8, the 1/2 octahedra, and then stick those on the outside of the remaining cube. So it would be easy to see.
Don't use Swiss cheese.
What?
Don't use Swiss cheese.
Don't use whiskey.
And did you have a
But it
comment?
will be, I will try that. It's quite interesting. I will try to do that.
Richard, did you have something?
Yeah, what just struck me is that when I look at A, it's like if you put the center in the middle, it's like looking inside the the cube, and you get these half octahedrons, 4 of them. And then when you look at B, B is, instead of doing it to the inside, it's putting the half octahedron on top of each face, or on the outside of each face.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden that's become very clear to me in terms of the inside A and the outside B on the square faces.
That is basically the inside out.
Yeah, yeah.
If you cut it like that and turn it out, and then bring the outside now to mix, to be face to face, or rotated face, I can't know. That's what you will get. I'll try that.
Yep,
Again, as I say, I take risk. So don't take what I'm saying for gospel.
I found the video.
It might be complete bullshit, but
The other thing that I can do with my mind's eye on A with that dot in the middle, and so it's like I'm looking inside the cube. Now I can take that dot and pull it out of each face, and it becomes what Manu has just described. It goes from the inside to the outside. And if you could animate it,
Here we go.
It would be like the the vector equilibrium, where you can see it almost in that in, out, in, out.
Yeah. You can expand it like that and take those things now and start folding them, Steve. You see the way what materialized out of the cube.
Yeah,
That's
this
another
is
way
not
to doing
quite,
it.
this,
Yes.
yeah, this is not quite doing it because this octahedron needs to be twisted 90 degrees so that then it would, then the protruding stellations would match the face on the cube. Right now they're at 90 degrees or 45, whatever that is. But yeah, I think a piece of cheese would be fun, except I actually see this. This is something I can see. Any other comments or questions? Cool.
Well,
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Anne.
Okay, I'm looking at it not to more to from a maybe simpler level, yeah. Actually the first diagram, the A, the way they did the diagonals, right, form the tetrahedra inside, right? So instead of looking at it as pulling it out, it's actually the stellation is actually part of the tetrahedron. No, that's not tetrahedron. That's four
No,
sides, right?
they're-
The
they're
pyramid.
half-
Sorry, the
it's
pyramid.
half a
Pyramid.
octahedron. Yeah.
half an
Yeah.
octahedron
Half a
or
Half
pyramid.
an octahedron, right? Half a pyramid, correct.
or
So
all of
half
a
of
pyramid.
yeah.
All of
So
a pyramid,
the
half of an octahedron.
yeah. So half the pyramid is actually the other half that's actually sticking out is actually the other is from another cube. Does that make sense?
Yeah, if we had two cubes, we could
Yes.
use one to stellate the other. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm seeing that. And then what they did is that they're drawing it and pulling out the squares, so it's easier for people who think in squares to visualize. So technically, this drawing itself has got everything that we talked about, from dodecahedron to the octahedron to the rhombic dodecahedron. Is there? It's just depending on where you draw you join the lines. That's what I'm seeing. Okay. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
complete.
Yeah, I would say that cutting a piece of cheese like this would be kind of difficult. That would be hard to do.
Let's try first.
You can try it. We'll watch you, Manu.
I will try. I will try.
Okay, really good.
Yeah, but you got to make sure you don't do what the discoverers of the carbon-60, when they were trying to use the gumballs and toothpicks to create the pentagon, hexagon sort of shape.
Right.
And one of the problems, this was two graduate students doing it, part of their frustration and trying to get it right, they would turn to eating the gumdrops. And so they ended up eating all the gumdrops before they came up with the understanding of the structure.
So if you're going to do this, Manu, you got to get a bunch of cheese because you just don't know how much self-control you're going to actually
Well,
have.
it depends on my wife if she's going to let me, because
And we'll get the gumdrop.
cheese is quite expensive.
Yeah. We'll get the gumdrop so we can eat while watching you.
Okay.
But you have to chase away all mice. Eh?
Who's
Before you start
ready?
making-
Who's ready to share some takeaways? Take a little thought here. If you're ready to go, raise your hand and begin the takeaways.
Well, I'll start right now. The big takeaway for me was capturing that 12.3 A and B, and very clearly seeing the inside pyramids of the cube, and then being able to pull it out so that the pyramid now is on the face, outside face of the cube. And then I got into the rhythm, the jitterbug rhythm, so I can now put it back in, and then I can pull it out, and I can pull it in and out, and I get that that combination of in and out, or inside and outside, working together in a complementary way.
Cool. You want to pass it on?
Yeah, I saw Fred nodding his head, not shaking his head, but
Nodding approvingly to your takeaway. Thank you, Richard. My takeaway is it's always useful to go back to definitions. That's why I filled up the chat with definitions, because it helps to understand what's going on. That's my takeaway. So Anne, what's your takeaway?
A lot, actually. Thank you, Fred. Okay. First and foremost, just to let y'all know, next week I won't be attending. Yeah, apologies to all. The reason I'm sharing is because I'm going for this friend from Canada. She's a Canadian citizen but Malaysian. She runs programs here, and she's doing a session on sacred healing. So I'm going for that. I'll update y'all. Yeah, she was supposed to do sound healing, but she changed it. Earlier on. So it's sacred healing. So I'll let y'all know what that looks like, because I've never been to one. Yeah. Okay. I got so much. The one that's freaking me out is the lethal. Okay. The problem you're facing with 99% scientific illiteracy, that is scaring the heck out of me, because what are we educating kids to go out there to do what, if they are 99% illiterate, if we're basing it out of information from 2,000 years ago. And back then, we didn't even talk about this. We didn't even have the issue of measuring and smelling, seeing things that cannot be seen, all that, and yet we are perpetuating more of this. That for me is horrific. The other one that I got out of this, this is one of the few days I've got a lot written down, and I'm really excited about that new kind of science. So passing it on. Lee, how do you feel, and what is your takeaway today?
You have to unmute, Lee.
I was so confused, but the more and more we went through the book, I could see the forms, especially the pictures. It explained it more to me than the words. But I really enjoyed looking at the picture where the center was pulled out and made a new thing. It was fabulous. And I am an artist, and I've never seen any of this. Of course, I've not studied the math. And that was beautiful. All the designs that the tetrahedron, the simple pyramid, what it turns into. Phenomenal. I'd like to pass that on to, did we get everybody?
Brad.
Fred, have you had your turn?
Yes, I had my turn. Thank you.
Manu. So, Manu, what do you think of? How do you feel, and what have you discovered?
I feel good. I think that what I take away is the ubiquitous duality of dualities.
Mm.
Everything is made of duality of dualities. That preserves symmetry, that preserves everything else. It is the basis of everything from my own from my point of view. That's what I take away. Otherwise, I'm grateful. Who's left? Is it Steve?
I think it's me.
Yes, Steve. How do you feel? What do you take away?
Well, I got to tell you, we've been, I've been jerking around a cube for so long that to suddenly have a cube be a legitimate aspect of all this geometry has blown my mind because I've been putting cubes on the back burner, and now all of a sudden I'm confused about that. Although it's wonderful that the cube has a purpose. And I'm glad to see that. Manu, I'm very impressed with your efforts on your language and to bring clarity to your conversation. And I just really am appreciative of that. And it goes as a corollary, it goes to this statement that Anne is so focused on about humanity in a lethal blind of 99% scientific illiteracy. When something is so obvious and I don't see it, it's not part of my world, right? I don't see it. It creates an amnesia. In hypnotherapy, we called it selective amnesia. Once I have I experience a trauma, and I wish not to see it again. I can walk through and see traumas all around me, but I won't see them because I'm selectively not seeing them. That the brain is really good at doing this stuff, and we do the same thing with sun clips, sun sight. We do, our language is so, my language has historically been so and continues to be in so many ways a distortion of reality. And if I allow that language to persist, I promote amnesia. And so, thank you, Manu, for like being aggressive on your language. How cool that is. And I really want to, this 99% scientific illiteracy, I look around at the world and if one of the things I don't know if you guys know Sabina Hassenfelder, but she's a physicist who has become an information person. What do they call that? Influencer. And she teaches, she explains physics and things, and she does nothing but complain about how the last 50 to 80 years of physics has been sucked up because the establishment picked a certain paradigm and said, this is reality. And when someone comes up with a new idea that has some hope, like Stephen Wolfram is self-funded. And the way he created his funding was started out creating language to solve problems. And so he wrote, and I'm not an expert in Stephen Wolfram, Fred, if you've read that book, you know more than me, but he started out with his Wolfram language and from there continued to spread and continue self-funded. Most physicists are not self-funded. They have to write papers, they have to write themes, they get approved, they get grants. And Sabina is, for the last 50 to 180 years, there's this box of quantum mechanics that was obvious it was a dead end 25 years ago, 30 years ago, but they've stayed in that box because that's where the funding is, because that's what everybody understands. As soon as one brings up a new idea, it can't get funded. So, Anne, I have so much sympathy for you and your school and what you're trying to do because it's so much easier to sell strawberry lollipops than it is to sell the future of humanity. Wow. So I'm impressed with the cube. All of a sudden, I've got to relook at the cube and see what the hell I've been missing for the last little while because I've become this tetrahedron dude. So I've had fun today, and I really enjoy everybody's paradigm. And thank you all for sharing and being here. Any other comments or questions before we go? Okay.
Thank you
I'm
all.
looking forward to see what Manu does with the cheese.
No, I'm trying. Okay, maybe I'll find substitute.
Yeah, I would
I'm
use.
trying to do this. I'm trying to do this.
Oh, okay.
Parmesan
cheese is a lot more firm than goat cheese. So, pick the right cheese.
Don't hold me to it.
Okay, cool.
All
Okay,
right.
everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.